Hello, good night. Good night. Hello, good night. I hope everyone's having a good day. And if it's been a day like mine, hopefully it's the end of your day. So at the very least, you have some sleep to look forward to, or gaming, or something fun to look forward to. At the very least, before the grind continues tomorrow. It has been a day. There have been meetings that were previously emails that should have just stayed emails. And today is a little complicated. So today's book is a sequel as part of Sequel Summer. However, it reads like a standalone, and it's the third book in the series, not the second, and that really doesn't affect your enjoyment of it at all. So it's kind of like the Redwall series in the sense of the Howl's Moving Castle books can kind of be read however you want to, and just be aware that it is a familiar world and familiar characters, sort of. We'll get into how that is. But yeah, so I hope everyone's having a better night. I have coffee, hypothetically. Well, I have coffee, but we'll see how much of it I actually drink. It's in a very insulated cup and it is very hot, so it may not be drinkable. I will say that much like last week's and much like next week's is going to be, a lot of the information on like the illustrator and the author are the same as they were for the first book. In this case, I could find other covers, but I couldn't find other illustrators, so I, as per usual, left them off. Although, we'll get into some of it later. But yeah, so we are doing one of the sequels to Howl's Moving Castle, the one that actually has sequel on the book cover. The other one says a companion to Howl's Moving Castle. And we are doing House of Many Ways. So let me... Ta-da! As per usual, this is to entertain and inform. I don't hold any of the rights to the works described, and I hope you enjoy. And all of my wires are crossed, so things are being dumb on this side. So, House of Many Ways by Diana Wynne Jones. This is published by EOS in 2008. It's EOS, Green Willow, Harper? Penguin? Hang on. Harper. It's EOS, Green Willow, Harper Collins. Some of you may remember that the copy of Howl's Moving Castle that I have is the EOS copy. This goes with it. The cover artist is the same. All that's the same. It is part of a series, very clearly, since we are doing Sequel Summer, and it is the third book in Howl's Moving Castle. So fun fact number one. If you go looking for the name of the series that Howl's Moving Castle is, you will find it called the Castle series, you will find it called the Wizard's Castle, you'll just see it called Howl's Moving Castle. The easiest way for me to delineate that is to just put Howl's Moving Castle Book 3. So that is how I have chosen to present it to you, and also most of the copies of this book that I've seen say Howl's Moving Castle somewhere on the front. Because why wouldn't you name drop your most popular book in the series? So this is House of Many Ways. As you can see here, sequel to Howl's Moving Castle. This is the original cover by John Rocco. He is the American illustrator who's done covers for Percy Jackson, He's worked at Walt Disney Imagineering. Jeez Louise. And I kind of love this cover because it's one part a big liar cover, because yes, you see Howl's Castle in the distance, and yes, that is Howl's Castle from the cover of Howl's Moving Castle. But also, this image is more of a vibe for the story than anything directly from it. It's lovely image. I love this image, but it's there's nothing like this in the actual story. No, we'll get there in a second. So about the author, Diana Wynne Jones is a British novelist and poet who has been cited as an inspiration by numerous fantasy authors. She's won 2 Mythopoeic Awards. She was friends with both Robin McKinley and Neil Gaiman. And this particular book, House of Many Ways, was in fact nominated for a Mythopoeic Award. Oh, sorry, I sneezed. So what do you need to know about this book? What you need to know is book smart, world dumb. We'll get there. It's a slow and steady read. It has odd magic, and it's a standalone. So sequel summer, only sort of. It is very much a standalone novel. It can stand on its own 2 feet. You do not have to know anything about Howl's Moving Castle to find this book a wonder and a delight. So, your main character. You have a primary and a secondary main character. Some might argue that the secondary main character is a side character, but he's not a perspective character, but it's really hard to call him not a main character. But your main character is Charmaine Baker, and she is useless. Like, you find that out the gate. She's stubborn, she's opinionated, she wants to work in the King's Library. She's lazy and admits it. She reads a ton of books and knows a lot of information and is always looking for more, but it's very clear from very early in the book that she has never tried to apply the knowledge. She is not learning for a purpose. She's just learning to hoard the knowledge. She is not a nice main character. She is not nice or kind or generous or any pick a princess trait. She's none of them. She's pretty. But that's about it. She's bookish, wears glasses on a chain around her neck. She's a 13-year-old who, every time they describe her, all you can picture is an old granny librarian with the book, with the glasses around her neck and lifting the glasses up to read, and she's very no nonsense. So she's not a flighty character. She can be startled, but she's not flighty. That being said, you may not like her. She's not likable. She's understandable, but she's not likable. So, book smart, world dumb. This is specifically about Charmaine, but it is a recurring problem for multiple characters across the series, and book. And it's kind of the main point. You meet a ton of characters who, not only do they describe them as highly intelligent, but they kind of prove that they are highly intelligent characters. But they can't see the forest for the trees, and they're so obsessed with one particular thing, whether that thing is knowledge or a specific facet of knowledge, that they can't see beyond it. And one of the fun twists at the end. So Diana Wynne Jones loves to put a twist at the end. One of the fun twists at the end is very much a dumb twist, but it's the kind of dumb twist that smart people would never conceive of, which is why it works so well, because so many of the characters are so intelligent. And it's not just that they tell you they're smart. Like, you can very clearly see how they are acting, and it's like, oh, you've got a high level of, like, theoretical knowledge and a low level of practical knowledge. And you need practical knowledge. Slow and Steady. This is a slower read than Howl's Moving Castle, which isn't a hugely fast read. And a lot of things happen, and a lot of things happen per chapter. Like, the density of what happens is pretty high, but it feels slow. It takes place over, I think, a week? So a lot happens in a short amount of time, but the whole book it feels like a taffy pull. It feels like the whole thing is just stretched and folded in places and stretched out again. There are reoccurring, there are running gags. The secondary character who shows up, Peter, he's bad at directions. So you meet him, you find out he's bad at directions, and the gimmick of the House of Many Ways is that there is a door, and it can lead to all sorts of places depending on how you step through it, what direction you face, how you turn, are you spinning as you step through it, like all of these like really fun quirky things. And he's bad at directions, so he keeps winding up in the wrong spot. And so the first time you meet him, he's like, oh, I normally tie a string on my hand to tell left from right. And you're like, okay, that's fine. And then, like, you turn around and he's got 3 strings on his fingers. And you're like, how do you keep them straight if you've got multiple strings? What are you doing? They are all multiple colored, so at least that makes sense. But there are multiple problems that are caused by that. There's at least 1 chapter, if not 2, that are specifically about Waif, who is the dog. She's a delight. So I'm not normally the book has a dog person, but I really like Waif. Waif is a lot like Heem, and when I was reading it, I originally thought, oh, well, Heem is probably pulling from Waif, and then I looked at the timeline for this, and I'm like, oh no, House of Many Ways was not written. Or at least not published. It is odd magic. So, magic is either extremely practical, similar to how Sophie could speak magic into doing things for her in Howl's Moving Castle. Charmaine has a bit of that, or it is wild with a veneer of logic. The way the door works in the castle, the fact that laundry just multiplies, although that's more of a practical thing than a magical thing. Some of the magic things that happen are absolutely wild. But they're all given like the thinnest coat of logic, and you're like, yeah, okay. If you've never read Howl's Moving Castle, it might be a little harder to follow, but Howl's Moving Castle played so fast and loose with its magic, and the fact that it had very practical magic, again, and then it had Howl's magic, which, yeah, there was logic there, but he was also doing wild and crazy stuff, and you're just like, sure, this seems logical. Why can't he do that? He's got a fire demon. Speaking of, this is a standalone novel. It is a sequel to Howl's Moving Castle. However, you hear about Howl before you meet him. And you don't meet any of the main cast until like page 150 out of a 400-page book. So if you're reading this going, I want to get to Howl and Sophie and Calcifer, you will be disappointed. Like, they're there and they're a delight once they show up, but they aren't the point. And even when they do show up, they augment the story of Charmaine. They don't take over. There is when Sophie first shows up, they don't mention her name. They're like, oh, a friend has come, and we wish her husband would have come, but he's a court wizard, so he's not here. And you're like, cool. I know who that is. I've read Howl's Moving Castle. I know exactly who that is. And then I'm going, oh, they got married. But if you haven't read Howl's Moving Castle, you don't necessarily know who that is. You know, okay, cool. You have the wife of a wizard, and not as good, but clearly an acceptable substitute. And yes, it's Sophie, and she's a delight. For those who have seen the movie and who have read the book, she is young Sophie again. So that is all done and dusted. But I really like this book. I found it really funny. Like I think I've said before, when I'm looking things up to put together for y'all, one of the places I go to find things is like I'll Google things, and then if I have to dig deeper and go onto like the author's website and places like that, or the illustrator's website, sometimes I go to review websites just because, especially when I'm hunting down book covers and book cover illustrators in particular, it's like I look all over the place. This book is very much a hit or miss, and the reason I want to bring that up, and the reason I want to bring that up here on the standalone page, is I think this series, this trilogy, gets a bit of a reputation because of the Miyazaki film. Like, don't get me wrong, I love it. Absolutely love the Miyazaki film. Deeply. But I think if you go from that film to the books, you can enjoy them. Like, I greatly enjoy them. But you can't go into them expecting them to be the same. House of Many Ways it's slower than the novel Howl's Moving Castle, and it's a snail's crawl to the movie. It seems to be the least liked out of all three, and I think part of that is because Howl and Sophie are not the main point. Like, it's set in their world, but it's not about them. It's like I'm going to use a reference, and I'm going to mention it again later. It's like if you read Tamora Pierce books, and if you read, say, the Elena Quartet, and then you pick up the Wild Mage books, same world, and yes, sequel series, but wholly independent, and you don't have to read Elena to read about Numenera and Derry. It absolutely makes sense without that. So yeah, this book is much like that in that it's in the same world. It's a little. So at least Tamora Pierce keeps it all like close in the same kingdom with like two exceptions. Um, this is not. I mean, it is. It's a place that is named in Howl's Moving Castle, but it's not in the same place. You will see familiar names, place names, and some familiar characters. But oh, excuse me. But yeah, it's basically its own novel. And the recommendations. So I was originally going to do a recommendation for Booksmart Headdom. And then I realized that a lot of that overlaps with these, so we just left that alone. Recommendations of other books with odd magic. I said we would get back to Tamora Pierce, and here we are. So Sandry's book is the first book in the Circle of Magic Quartet. It takes place in not Tortall. It's the series that isn't in Tortall, and is about 4 kids. Four orphans, who, well, yeah, I think Trissa's technically an orphan, who are all mages, and it's a world with 2 different kinds of mages. So you have academic mages, which is exactly what it sounds like. They are wizards. They are wizards who go and study magic and learn magic, and they learn it from books, and then they use components and foci and internal magic and it's a battery powered flashlight. They're the battery powered flashlight of wizards in that world. The other side, and what your main characters are in that series are ambient mages, who are the solar powered flashlights, in that their magic is almost always through ordinary things. There's thread magic, there's weather magic, there's magic with metal and forging, there's magic with plants, there's magic with food. There's magic with wood and stone and like all of these normal things that can be crafted. Weather's the weirdo in that group, but normal things. But the magic isn't in the user as much as it's in the world. So they have the ability to harness it and focus it, but for example, one of the characters uses plant magic. If you stick him in a stone box with no plants and put him on a metal plate in the desert, he's gonna be in trouble because there's no plants for him to use his magic on. So it's things like that. Conversely, if for whatever reason, someone, so the one who's probably never gonna be down and out except when her battery is running low is, there's a thread mage, and like everybody wears clothes. So moving on, sorry. Is Sabriel by Garth Nix. It is a high fantasy split world between a world very similar to ours and a world that's nothing like ours. It is a bell-based sealing magic, catching and sealing things. It has a cat. He is sassy, so all hail Mogget. There's three, and then I think there's a new one. New is a relative term, but I have read Sabriel, Lyriel, and Aporson, which is the original Aporson trilogy. I'm pretty sure there's more now. Tales from Over the Wall. Is it Tales from Over the Wall? My brain says it's Tales from Over the Wall. Let's see. Garth Nix books. Sabriel, Lyriel, Aporson. I just want that series. Is it the Old Kingdom? It is. There's 5 of them now? That seems insane. Alright, well there's 5 of them now. Oh, 6. I can count. Don't mind me, guys. I could have sworn there was a book of short stories. Short fiction? There is. I have not gone crazy. Hooray! There is a short stories called Across the Wall. But I highly recommend that series. It's dealing with death and life and how to seal and contain and things like that. It's very much a hey, the previous person who had this job, stuff happened, they're gone, you need to fix it now. Sorry, have a magical cat to explain things to you. Oh, it comes in a box set. I should stop looking at Garth Nix books, but I really like them. Why are they? Oh, I forgot he did Trouble Twisters. Those are fun. No, I'm not at all distracted. By just... Ooh. He wrote a romance novel. That seems weird. Okay, sorry, I will get off of, I will get off of his website. I'm just supposed to be looking up how many books are in the series. Nope. Rabbit hole. Ballad and Dagger by Daniel Jose Older. I have talked about both it and its sequel. There is music-based magic in that one. And more, but it's music based. It's set in New York City, in San Madrigal is the island. Little Madrigal? I think it's Little Madrigal. It's the diaspora who left the island when the island sank. And so it is dealing with that. Music is a big deal in that one. And then a Wizard of Earthsea by Ursula K. Le Guin. This is not an easy read. Honestly, this is the closest one-to-one as far as how easy to read it is to Diana Wynne Jones. Ursula K. Le Guin and Diana Wynne Jones are similar in readability, although they're not similar in content. Both are fantasy, but there's a huge difference between the Earthsea books and the Howl's Moving Castle books. So this is the first book in the Earthsea cycle. What do you need to know? So it deals a lot of how magic works in Earthsea is true names and true power and a lot of like old world things like that. It is a book of, it is a coming of age story. It is a story of pride and arrogance and power and corruption and all of that. In this first book, that is all wrapped within the same person. With fear. Like, tying the bow around it all is fear. Your main character, because names are important, will have multiple names. Everybody will have multiple names. If that is not your jive, or you are not feeling up for it that day, that may not be the book for you. It is a dense world. It is a populated world, and it is very much a world where you feel like time goes on. Time marches forward in this world. Now, I said I was going to put Book Smart World Dumb in here, but most of these also hit that target. Ballad and Dagger's an exception. You've got more World Smart, Book Dumb, and Ballad and Dagger. Or Music Smart, World Dumb, and Ballad and Dagger. But all of these books have a character, at least one, who is incredibly knowledgeable. But just doesn't actually get how to apply that knowledge. I will say, something to remember about both Sandry's book and House of Many Ways is they are both technically children's books. House of Many Ways is a like middle zone book, and Sandry's book is a children's book. That doesn't mean there's not some dark stuff in Sandry's book, but it's written for kids. So there are some things that as an adult are probably not read as intended. The endless laundry or dishes that show up is such an adult thing that it doesn't feel funny. It feels exhausting. And I very much remember the first time I read House of Many Ways, the multiplying dishes and the multiplying laundry was hilarious. As an adult, I read that and I go, oh no, that's just how life is. Those things just multiply. If you ignore them, they get worse. That coffee is too hot. I cannot taste it. But yeah, so that is how those go. I will say, oh, you see nothing. Why is it acting up? Why are you acting up all of a sudden? There we go. I will say that, I kind of like books that can stand on their own. Well, unlike the Garth Nix book, Saber Illyriel and A Porson, the original Porson trilogy, they need to be read in order to get the full picture, but as someone who may have accidentally read Lyriel before they read Sabriel because they didn't know that they went in order, you don't have to. You'll just be a little confused. I also vaguely mentioned, like I jumped by it earlier, the Redwall books are technically books that have a series. There is a sequential order, both of publication and of internal time. They're not the same. So they're technically sequels, but they're also technically standalones. You don't have to read Mossflower to read Redwall. You don't have to read The Legend of Luke to read Mossflower. You don't have to read Martin the Warrior to read Tagarung. You don't have to read... pick one. Anyone, read it. Do you like squirrels? Great, you can read Triss. Do you like otters? Great, you can read Tagarung. Do you like badgers? Great, you can read Salamanderstrong. Do you like hares? You can read The Long Patrol. It's really sad that you can break down almost all of those books by what animal do you want your main character to be. And they will not be your only main character. So the Redwall books are a delight. But not only do you get the perspective of the heroes in the Redwall books, you also get a perspective every so often from the villain, whether it's Clenny the Scourge or who, as a kid, I thought his name was Clenny the Scrooge. But Clenny the Scourge, you'll get perspective from his group of rats. In Mossflower, you'll get the perspective of the cats, the wild cats in the castle. You'll get all sorts of perspectives in those books. So those are another good one if you want to read a series and you don't want to care about what order. I highly recommend the Redwall books for that. If you want to read the other Howl's Moving Castle, so Howl's Moving Castle book 2 is Castle in the Sky. No, Castle in the Air. It's right in front of me. I can't seem to. It is much more Arabian Nights than Howl's Moving Castle, and it is. It is a web of characters in that that's another one that has 10,000 names for one character kind of problems. It's a delight. It's wonderful. It has genies and magic carpets and all of that fun stuff. So that is book 2 in that series. I will admit, part of the reason I didn't read that one is because I always forget it's book 2 because it says it's a companion, and my little brain goes, companions are not sequels, they are separate. And so I'm like, no, the one that says it's a sequel on it, that's the sequel. Could I have checked the publication date and seen that 1990 was before 2008? Absolutely I could have. Why would I do such a logical thing? Oh, I was also going to mention, if you want a really pretty set of the Howl's Moving Castle books, the Folio Society has a very nice set out that you can purchase. And if you just want one, go for Howl's Moving Castle. I will say that forever and ever. It is my favorite of the three, and yes, part of that is because of the film, but part of it is just because I like Sophie and Howl. I like Sophie and Howl so much, and I like their story. I will say that is one of the nice things, is that you could imply a lot about their story from the sequels and what's going on. Yeah. But, yes, Howl's Moving Castle will always be the soft spot for me. So, next time, we will either be doing the sequel to Mything Persons, or the sequel to Cinder. I have not picked between those two. I believe... the sequel to Cinder is Little Red Riding Hood? Let's check. Cinder book 2. Scarlet, so yes, probably Little Red Riding Hood. And then Thing Persons. Tell me what the next one in the series is. I want book 6, man. Don't give me Amazon reviews. Give me the next book in the series. Little Myth Maker. That's what it is. So, it'll either be Little Myth Maker or it'll be Scarlet. So, that is where those are going to land. So, that being said, one of those is technically adult fiction, that being, Mything Persons. I just looked it up, and I looked at it, I saw it, and my brain just was like, you don't need the name right now. Little Myth Magic. And then, Scarlet is, of course, a YA novel. Interestingly enough, if you look up the Howl's Moving Castle novels, sometimes they're listed as YA, and I'm not sure why. If you go into them expecting YA, you will be probably disappointed. They are definitely aimed at a younger audience. And there's nothing... they're very much aimed at, like, somewhere between 13 and 15. So, middle zone more than YA. I mean, probably 12. Your main character's 13, so technically your main character is a little older than a reader, so 12. But yeah, so that is where we are going. We are continuing on sequel summer. It will be going through June and through July. We will see if I go past July, but at the very least we'll be going all the way through July with sequel summer. So, spoilers for the first books in the series that I've probably already talked about all summer. But that's it for tonight. I hope you all have a good night and a good time. Thanks for dropping by.